You were the first senator to call for withdrawal from Iraq. Are you satisfied with President Obama's plan for Iraq right now?
Not satisfied, pleased that it's significantly better than the Bush administration, but the idea of leaving a force of 50,000 troops there that includes not just what I consider to be legitimate purposes, such as protecting our troops or fighting counterterrorism, but also a huge undefined idea of training Iraqi troops, to me, is way more than was anticipated or campaigned on, and I'd like to see the President drop that piece. So it's an improvement, but I am not yet satisfied with it.
And military contractors, about equal number, they haven't talked about what should happen to them in Iraq.
Hopefully that will still be coming. There's a lot of activity both in the Congress and some conversations with the executive branch. That has to be pulled back. That has to be controlled. It is one of the worst abuses. It is a classic example of what President Eisenhower warned about many decades ago with the military-industrial complex. It's a frightful thing to see. And I've seen it in Afghanistan and in Iraq, where we have our troops not making very much money, and then you see these other people making all kinds of money through private contractors. It creates a really bad environment in many different ways.
You mentioned Afghanistan. What do you think of President Obama expanding the war there and into Pakistan?
Well, I am pleased that he has identified Pakistan as the greater threat in the situation than Afghanistan itself. That is an important improvement over the tunnel vision of the Bush administration. On the other hand, I think I was the first member of the Congress to say, wait a minute, why would you increase the troop force in Afghanistan by 21,000 troops when you haven't even figured out exactly how to control the situation in Pakistan? The leaders of al-Qaeda are in Pakistan. The leaders of the Taliban are in Pakistan. Why would you create this further environment that is perceived as occupation in Afghanistan? I think it's counterproductive. I think it may make the situation in Pakistan worse. So the greater understanding of the region is a good thing, but I think the troop buildup is dangerous, and I have expressed that as recently as yesterday directly to the Secretary of State at a meeting we had.
And what does Secretary Clinton say?
Well, of course, she's part of this administration, and they have a belief that various steps they can take on the civilian side in Afghanistan can help. And, of course, that part of it I'm more comfortable with. But I question whether that, combined with a military buildup, really is something that's at cross purposes. One of the things that unifies those, such as the Taliban and others, is our military presence there. We need to have a lesser military presence in Afghanistan so the people of that country can believe it's going to be their country someday. We've been there now 8 years. And yes, I did support the original invasion, but I did not support a permanent occupation of Afghanistan.
Why do you think President Obama is pushing the expansion of the war there? I mean, some might say he's president today because of his brave anti-war stance against Iraq, and yet he's taking a very different approach to Afghanistan.
I'm sure he would dispute the claim that he is expanding the war. I happen to think the expansion of the war in Afghanistan is happening, and so he would dispute it, but I think that's what's happening. Now, he is not talking about invading Pakistan, and that it is not fair to suggest that he's talking about American troops in Pakistan, which, of course, he has not talked about, would not be wise. It is a good move to put pressure on the Pakistani government to try to crack down on the militants within their own country, because that situation is very dangerous for us. But to simultaneously broaden our military presence in Afghanistan, to me, is unwise and does constitute an expanding of the war. So I fear it. I understand he's doing it because he wants our troops to be protected. He wants to give protection to those that are trying to do civilian things in the communities. I understand that rationale. I just don't think putting a lot of more troops in there really helps you do that. I think it makes it harder.
And in Pakistan, these unmanned drone attacks?
This is part of a strategy, apparently, that has to do with trying to locate militants and deal with them. Is it effective? Is a good question. What is the collateral damage in terms of human beings that have done nothing wrong? And also, what is the collateral damage in terms of unifying those that are angry about the United States and angry about the Pakistani government? So to the extent that activity is occurring, we have to really think about whether it's working, whether it really makes sense.
Senator Feingold, President